Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've two speakers tonight. First of all, Dr. Anthony Coughlan, and also Leigh MP.
Well, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honoured to have the opportunity of saying a few words here this evening on the Lisbon Treaty, first of all, and then some points about the euro. Somebody the other day compared the whole business of the Lisbon Treaty and the EU Constitution to a Russian doll. In the next 2 days, beginning tomorrow, there's going to be a summit of the EU heads of state or government, and the centrepiece of this summit are going to be various assurances to the Irish voters who voted no to the Lisbon Treaty on 12th of June last year, that their concerns are being met by various statements and assurances being given by the Prime Ministers and Presidents. This will take place in the next couple of days. We've already got leaked versions of these assurances, and as a friend of mine said, it's like a Russian doll. On the surface, there'll be the Irish assurances, which are meant to gull Irish voters into changing their vote in a second repeat referendum on exactly the same treaty, probably in early October, possibly in late September. Then the next layer of this Russian doll will be the Treaty of Lisbon, and then remove that, and inside again is the EU Constitution, which was rejected by the French and Dutch in referendum in 2005. The so-called assurances to Ireland will not change a jot or tittle of the treaty. They will be declarations, statements, political commitments, promises by the Prime Ministers that their successors in a few years' time will do such and such, but they won't change a comma of the Lisbon Treaty. In other words, the Irish voters will be expected to say yes to something that's exactly the same as they said no to last year. I'd just like to emphasise what I suggest are the most important elements of the Lisbon Treaty, which would make Democrats everywhere opposed to it. It's a constitutional revolution in both the European Union itself and in its member states, because for the first time it gives the European Union, what we know as the European Union, the constitutional form of a supranational federation. All 500 million citizens of the 27 member states would become real citizens for the first time of this new constitution, new European Union. And as citizens, you'd have rights and duties of citizenship. The rights are set out in the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, which would be made legally binding for the first time, and which would empower the European Court of Justice to decide what are the rights of EU citizens, all 500 million of them. The second thing, on the power political side, I mentioned the constitutional side of Lisbon. On the power political side, the most important change which the Lisbon Treaty would bring about is that it would greatly increase the power of the big states, and above all of the Federal Republic of Germany. The EU will be given power to impose its own taxes. Also, there's a self-amending clause, Article 48, which allows the heads of state or government, the governments, to agree to shift most areas of the treaty from unanimity to majority voting without having new treaties or referendums. If they unanimously agree, they can shift a policy area that at present requires unanimity to majority voting, without having to come back to the people through new treaties which would require parliamentary ratification or referendums and so on. Finally, a few words about the euro. It had two adverse consequences. An interest rate regime which was too low for Irish circumstances. It suited Germany and France, which were in semi-recession at the time, to have low interest rates. So we had low interest rates when we joined the Eurozone, but we actually needed higher interest rates. The second point worth noting about the Irish economy and the euro is that the Republic of Ireland does 2/3 of its trade outside the Eurozone. And of course you have devalued the currency vis-a-vis the euro, and it's gone down, and that has certainly helped British exports. It should help them in the future. It's one of the big advantages the British economy has. And of course if we were outside the Eurozone, we'd be doing the same. We'd be going down within our kingdom. But instead we're stuck with the euro at an overvalued and inappropriate exchange rate, considering we do 2/3 of our trade outside the Eurozone. And if you're deprived of the right to change the exchange rate of your currency, if you're deprived of the ability to vary all your prices by changing your exchange rate, well then the only way you can restore your if you can no longer restore your competitiveness if you got into a non-competitive situation by altering your exchange rate, the only other way is to cut pay, profits, pensions and social welfare for years on end. And that is what's currently occurring in the Republic of Ireland. And we will be saying, well, the same people who brought you the borrowing binge and the burst bubble and the shattered banks are the same people as are bringing you the Treaty of Lisbon. So they are the same people. They are the same people. Thank you very much.
So I've been asked to talk to you about fraud and corruption in the European Union, and I'd like to add a further topic, financial management. This November, the Commission will go a 15th successive year without a positive statement of assurance, which is a fairly extraordinary state of affairs. Let me set the scene. If you cast your minds back to the 15th of March 1999, you will recall that the entire Santer Commission resigned following the publication of a report on fraud, mismanagement and nepotism, yes, nepotism, in the Commission by a committee of independent experts. Following the appointment of the new Commission, there was another well-reported incident, that of the suspension and subsequent dismissal of Marta Andreasen, Chief Accountant of the European Union. You'll remember that very well. Mrs. Andreasen in 2002 refused to sign off the Commission's accounts because she believed the accounting system to be unreliable and the finances open to fraud. Well, of course, she's just been re-elected, hasn't she, to the European Parliament, but I'm not allowed to say anything nice about her because she's a member of UKIP. God forbid that I should say anything nice. Just in case. This is being filmed. I might be drummed out of the Conservative Party. Anyway, I think she'll make a very good member of the European Parliament. Am I allowed to say that? Oh, God, I might be in front of the scrutiny committee or something. And then came the appointment of the Barroso Commission in 2004. Spurred by the perceived lack of financial controls, corruption and fraud, President Barroso set his Commission the challenging task of achieving a positive assurance by 2009. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, in November 2008, for the 14th successive year, the Court did not provide a positive statement of assurance on the legality and the regularity of the underlying transactions. Now, just think, in any private sector organisation, an external auditor's refusal to sign off the accounts would be a shock to shareholders. Refusal to sign off the accounts for 14 successive years would not happen. Shareholders would have removed the board long before that. But this has simply not happened. The qualification of the European accounts year after year undermines public confidence in the financial management of the European institutions. But it's simply unacceptable, in conclusion, that for 14 years in a row the Court cannot give a positive statement of assurance on legality and regularity of underlying transactions. To make progress, the Commission needs to simplify the complex rules and all the regulations covering the expenditure areas. Member States, including us, must do their bit in the areas where they jointly manage, which we don't do. And to clearly identify where irregularity and fraud occurs, OLAF and the Commission have to make sure the Member States report data in an accurate and timely fashion, which they don't do. And name and shame those who are tardy in reporting what is happening with European taxpayers' money, which they don't do. Without these actions, and concerted action and effort by all European institutions, I fear, ladies and gentlemen, that the Commission's failure to achieve a positive statement of assurance will continue to be as traditional as turkey at Christmas. Thank you very much.